Hey everyone, it's Ben Hardy here, and in today's video we're going to be comparing the Ineos Grenadier to the Toyota Land Cruiser to see which boxy off-road SUV is best. Before we get in this video, I want to give a huge shout out and thank you to the Brent Brown Toyota in Orem for giving me some time with this Land Cruiser. This particular one is not available for sale, but if you are interested in a Land Cruiser or a Toyota in general, I'll include a link to their website in the description down below. If you have any questions, you need any help, just ask for Todd. Also include a link to my car buying guide. Let's get into it. So powering the Land Cruiser is a hybrid turbo 2.4 liter four-cylinder that goes through an 8-speed automatic transmission. It produces 326 horsepower and then 465 pound-feet of torque. Fuel economy is 22 around town and then 25 on the highway. Now powering the Grenadier is a turbo 3-liter inline 6, no hybrids, goes through an 8-speed just like the Land Cruiser, not the same transmission but an 8-speed. Fuel economy with this, you can expect to average 17 to 18 miles per gallon, and then power outputs are 282 horsepower and then 331 pound-feet of torque. Before we move forward with this review, I do want to mention if you want to see more videos just like this, then I recommend you subscribe because I post content every single day. So both of these have a retro boxy design, but they're a little bit different, or quite a bit different. So with the Land Cruiser, you can see you've got these rectangular headlights, so it kind of is like boxy all around, and they've modernized it quite a bit. You can see here with the hood, for example, it's a little bit softer with the body lines. That's for aerodynamic efficiency, so it gives it just a more modern look in general. Whereas with the Grenadier, it's pretty much like all old school. I mean, there are some elements, like right here, they're rounded off, but that's to kind of mimic a Defender more than anything else. And so yeah, the Grenadier kind of has more of an old school look. And then you can see here at the Grenadier, how it's like all metal here with the skid plate and everything, and just with like the front end in general, I mean that bumper as well. Whereas the Land Cruiser has quite a bit of plastic, so again, it's kind of more of a modern take on an off-roader. Now with the Land Cruiser, our tire wheel setup is 265 by 70 by 18, and then with the Grenadier, it is 265 by 70 by 17. So a little bit of different setup. I mean, the Grenadier has steel wheels. Land Cruiser's got these modern alloys, which obviously look fancy and all of that. And the Land Cruiser does not have all-terrain tires, but that's obviously something you can easily change after the fact. The Grenadier, this one has the all-terrain tires from the factory, pretty aggressive, not all that big. Funny thing, this you can fit 33s from the factory. Same thing with the Land Cruiser, so you can fit the same size of tire off-road wise from the factory with both of them. And then you can see here with the fender flares, so those are different. And yeah, look at this, how like the fender is very small, it's like straight with the bodywork, and the fender flare comes out. Whereas the Land Cruiser, the fender and the fender flare come out. They both have boxy mirrors, which is kind of a cool thing. And then they actually both have rock rail protection as well. But again, you can see here, just straight back, whereas the Land Cruiser, it kind of flows more like a more modern car. Now here's a side view with the Grenadier, and then here's a side view with the Land Cruiser. And this leads us to the back. Funny enough, the Land Cruiser, well, it's kind of like a modern SUV, so you've got this power lift gate, tons of storage in the back of the Land Cruiser. It's a really spacious vehicle, and they're actually both pretty much the same length. The Land Cruiser does have a shorter wheelbase, but the overall length is pretty similar. Anyways, yeah, we got fancy modern tech with the Land Cruiser, and something that's cool is you can actually pop the rear window. So if I press this, it'll pop up, or apparently it doesn't want, there we go. It'll pop up in the rear window. So you got that access point, the Land Cruiser, and then finishing up the rest of the rear. Again, you got that cool boxy design. Now popping over to the Grenadier, again, old school is kind of like the theme with this. So you actually have to open this up manually yourself. It's like two different swing gates, which is very interesting. Again, very spacious cargo area, lots of vertical space just like the Land Cruiser. They both look pretty similar in terms of the spacing, which is good, right? Practicality wise. Very interesting with the closing on that. And then yeah, you can see we've got like a ladder. We've got this spare tire storage with the Grenadier as well. And then it's just like straight line in the back. So it's like mega boxy with the design. But let me know which you like best. Now in the back of the Land Cruiser, legroom's pretty good. Got a little storage pocket here. You can see our own climate zone here in the back as well. And then really nice leather seats. I mean, look at these things. Just really nice trim all over. And the same thing on the door panel. Nice trim with that as well. And then great headroom with that boxy design. Now in the back of the Grenadier, good legroom just like the Land Cruiser. We do have stadium seating in the Grenadier, so you sit like higher, so you can see over. We don't have our own climate zone for the back, but we do have vents and stuff. And then we got leather seats here in the Grenadier, kind of more utilitarian. Same thing with the door panel design. Really tight fit and finish with the materials. And then again, that boxy roof, you've got quite a bit of headroom. So let's start up the Land Cruiser here. Ooh, full digital gauge cluster. Again, really nice trim on the door panel, tight fit and finish. Payload on this, 1,100 pounds for those of you who are wondering. And then you can see with the mirrors you do have blind spot monitoring. And then we got stuff like adaptive cruise control with this as well. Lots of fancy tech. So the traditional stalks in the back. And yeah, with this gauge cluster, kind of showed it a second ago, but fully digital, and you even have drive modes with the Land Cruiser for different items. And then 360 camera system with this as well. And then as for the rest of the infotainment system, it's easy to use. Quick response time with the screen overall. And then we have heated and cooled seats, dual zone climate up front. And then we also have Toyota's multi-terrain select crawl control as well, shifter for that 8-speed. And then this does have some off-road stuff. So we've got a center and a rear locking differential. We've got a stabilizer bar disconnect. We've got our four-wheel drive system. So it's in four-wheel high right now. You can pop it into four-wheel low. Got this nice center console here. Nice trim on the top. No center for this. And then as equipped, this particular Land Cruiser stickers for about $64,000. I mean, this is a lot of equipment for 64 grand if you ask me. Boy, oh boy, we gotta stick a key in the ignition with the Ineos. There we go. And then again, super tight fit and finish with the door panel. 1,200 pounds of payload with this, 1261 to be exact. Much more solid sound with the door closing. Not quite G-Wagon levels, but pretty solid. No blind spot monitoring with the mirrors. And then you can see really nice trim on the steering wheel. It's like this fancy brown leather. But if we pop over the cruise control, it's just regular cruise control, not adaptive. And then backup camera, just a regular backup camera, not even 360. And your gauge cluster's in this screen, so they've built everything into the screen system. Now, you can see it down below with the climate controls here. So that's kind of nice. Got heated seats with this as well, so all really easy to use and cool with the buttons. BMW shifter, because again, it's a BMW engine. Now, this is a little bit different with the driveline compared to the Toyota. So the Toyota, you select if you're in four-wheel high or four-wheel low, and then you select if your center locker's on. This similar system, but it's just that it's not multiple separate buttons. So like if I want to pop it into four-wheel high with the center locker, I just put it to the side. If I want four-wheel low with the locker, it's down here. And if I want four-wheel low without a locker, it's down there. So hopefully that makes sense. And then you got the nice center console here, good storage on it. Very, again, tight. And although these seats aren't as fancy, I guess, as the Toyotas because they don't have cooled function, they're really nice here. And you'll notice that with the build quality of this, really tight overall. We got the Safari windows up top with this. And then we do have front and rear locking diff. So the Toyota only has a rear and a center. This says center, front, and rear. And then we do have an off-road mode and a waiting mode as well. Don't have as many drive modes as the Toyota. And then this one, as equipped with like the options and stuff like that, like it has the checker plates too. All the dealer installed options, it's over $90,000. Now, because that Land Cruiser is not available, we can't do a side-by-side driving comparison, but I own this Ineos Grenadier, and I've done quite a bit of driving with that new Land Cruiser. I've also driven the new Lexus GX, so I'm pretty familiar with how that platform drives. When it comes to how these compare to each other with driving, this drives like basically a 90s SUV, but with a modern powertrain, so it's a little bit rough for riding, and it has that like tank-like, truck-like feel. That feels like a modern SUV. It's body on frame, but it handles and drives closer to like a unibody vehicle than it does like something like this that's old school body on frame with solid axles front and rear. And again, something else to mention, that has independent front suspension, solid rear axle. This is solid front and rear with the axle, so completely different setup from that perspective as well. So there's a difference there. And so then we have to answer the question of, well, is this really worth the extra like $30,000 over that? And realistically, the base MSRP in a Land Cruiser is about, what's 50, I think it's like $55,000 before options. After options, like if you do like a base model with no options, you're like $57,000. This, you're like $71,000. So depending on how you option out both the vehicles could vary with the price difference between them. And ultimately what I think it comes down to is what you're going to use the vehicles for. So if you're going to be doing like 99% daily driving and you're never going to go off-road, or maybe you're going to go off-road like once a year, the Land Cruiser, it's a luxury car. That's what I look at that as a luxury car that has off-road capability, and that's kind of what the Land Cruiser's not always been, but more recently it's been a luxury car that's still very capable and durable off-road. This is an off-road vehicle, and then it's kind of made street legal. So if you're going to be doing off-roading more often and you want something that's going to be able to do, I would say, more hardcore off-roading, again, with all of the plastic parts on that and some of the fancy stuff and everything, like, there's more stuff that could go wrong on that versus this is more simplistic, and so there's less that could potentially go wrong. So this is more dedicated towards off-roading. I look at this as almost like a utility tool that isn't as a car that I could have fun and go off-roading with. So let me know if you go Land Cruiser or if you'd go Grenadier, but I think it just depends on what you can use the vehicle for.